Welcome to the Vetiver Vibes podcast. We're your hosts, Nikki, Rachel, and Rhonda, certified clinical aromatherapists coming to you from Ontario, Canada, and on the internet everywhere.
This episode is brought to you by Essentria, a leading online school for aromatherapy. Essentria is your go-to source for clinical aromatherapy certification programs that are recognized by NAHA and the Canadian Federation of Aromatherapists.
If you want to learn more about how to use aromatherapy with kids, check out their website, www.schoolofessentria.com. We're excited that you've given your time to be here with us, knowing you'll get the best essential oil scoop.
Welcome to this week's episode of Vetiver Vibes. I'm Rachel Dean, and we are turning the tables where I'll be interviewing Nikki for our 4-part series on blending. In this series, we're going to go over the difference between acute, chronic, subtle, and perfume blending. This week, we're kicking off part 1, where we will talk about how to use aromatherapy for acute conditions. So, Nikki, acute conditions, how do you want to define that for us? What is an acute condition or situation?
Thanks, Rachel. It's so great to be on this side of it. So according to Medline Plus, acute conditions are severe and sudden onset. This could describe anything from broken bone to an asthma attack. An acute asthma attack occurs in the midst of a chronic disease of asthma. Acute conditions such as first asthma attack may lead to a chronic syndrome if untreated. So really, all that means is acute means it's a sudden onset. It's something that's going to be short term, which is the key aspect. So when we look at a sprained ankle, a broken bone, an asthma attack, a panic attack, something that comes on very suddenly that no one was really expecting, could leave suddenly, but not necessarily. And that's where, what they gave as an example for asthma attack, you can have a chronic condition, which we'll get into on the next one. But within a chronic condition, an acute situation happens, such as the asthma attack in the moment. So asthma is one of those that could be acute and chronic. But what we're really looking at is very, very short term.
Okay, so when we're formulating for acute conditions, should we do something different than we do generally, like otherwise?
Yeah, and this is where, and I don't have my dilution charts with me, but this is where our dilution charts are very, very handy. If you have not downloaded our dilution charts yet, please go to our website, and they're in the free section, and you will see all of our safety guides. And in that you'll see, and what I'm speaking of in all of these is for healthy adults. Can't really see it
to show up. No.
Yeah,
all right.
Rachel's trying to show it on the screen. But what we're talking about is for healthy adults, right? So we're not talking about someone with very complex medical conditions or children or pregnancy or anything like that, but a healthy, typical adult. If you look at our safety charts, it'll say, we can, for certain situations, we can go up to 20%. So as we've mentioned many, many, many times, we never want to go to max ever. But this is in a situation where starting at 5% would be okay. And maybe going up to 7%, possibly even 10%, and that would be okay. The biggest thing is still starting lower and slowly moving up if you're noticing that there isn't a difference yet. So, starting at that 5%, try it for a day or two. And if you're not getting the results, I would say maybe a day, because acute really only lasts a few days. Of
course.
So try it for a day. If it's not getting the results you want, it's easier to add essential oils to the carrier oil versus taking them out. So all you have to do is maybe add an extra drop or two to your blend, and, bumping that up to a 7-8%, try it out for another day and see how that goes.
So if you have, I was doing a lot of marketing on the weekend because our students had just sent in a big batch of things. And I noticed that some students, if they didn't get results with one of their clients or case studies, then they would increase it. So that's great. They were doing that. But then I noticed the next time they went to go do a case study that was like similar, but for a different person, that they were starting up at that higher level. So what do you want to like say about that, Nikki? I know you have an opinion.
Yes. And I'm shaking my head. No, because remember, each person is individual and unique, and each situation is also individual and unique. So yes, if I sprained my ankle, I may have needed a 10% blend eventually. But if you sprained your ankle, your body's going to react in its own unique way to a blend, and it could very well be the same blend that worked amazing for me, or sorry, same blend that I needed 10% to work great for me, whereas for you it might have worked amazing at 5%. Like each person is so different, and you need to start from square one and look at each person individually, and that's where the health history comes in, and always starting low and moving up as needed.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to kind of talk about exactly, was just like starting low, increasing, and just because like in this particular case, I want to say like 7% was the number that I could see there was a consistency happening. And we talked about it with this, I talked about it with the student, and they understand and will adjust for moving forward. But yeah, it was like, you could tell they got good results at 7%. So like that became like a go-to number. And it was like, no, like just try different oils at a lower percentage too. Sometimes, if it's a pain blend, sometimes you want to have, you might use like marjoram and wintergreen and something else, but then that maybe didn't work at the lower percentage for somebody, might work great for somebody else, or just try a different oil, maybe add frankincense to it or whatever, like kind of thing. So
black pepper.
You can also mix up the oils. Black pepper, yeah, that's a great one. Exactly. So
and that reminds me too, though, of, so as much as we're going at a higher percent, remember that each individual oil also has its max dilutions. So you have to still stay under the individual max dilution. Like that does not change. It is just the overall typical dilution, because we stress. And if you're new to our podcast, you will very quickly see that we stress dilute, always start low and slow. So for me to say like go higher, I still cringe, even though I know it's okay, but it's so hard for me to say. But the individual max does not change.
Yeah, exactly. So, and so if someone's doing the math for one of those and they get 3.6 drops, should they put 4 drops in, or should they put 3 drops in their blood?
3 drops. 3 drops, please. Yeah, we never want to round up, and we can't do half drops. As much as I would love to be able to do a half drop, we can't do half drops. So it's just better to round to the last full drop. So yeah, if you have 3.4, 3.6, 3.8, 3.9 even, you round down to 3 drops, because that is the last full drop to stay within that number and that safety.
Exactly. So
yeah,
that was another live marking example from this past weekend.
The other thing too that I was thinking of is something like panic attacks, because we were talking about topical dilution, where yes, we're going to be using, and that's what we're talking about, is how to blend, and a lot of this is for topical application to stay safe. However, for acute conditions, there's a lot of part where the olfactory comes into play, and aromatically can really be beneficial, especially. So for panic attacks, you can just add a drop to your hand, rub your hands together, and then tent over your nose and just inhale, and just keep breathing, and just keep breathing, and just keep breathing. What's nice is, because our hands have an extra layer of skin, when we look at how the skin is formed, our hands and our feet have an extra layer. So this helps protect our hands a little bit more, so that, you're not doing this all the time. It's a one-off, and you're just applying that 1 drop and then inhaling. If you can add another drop of, whatever carrot oil you have around, fantastic. But if you can't, like in a panic attack, you're not thinking of all the things. So just grab your bottle and start sniffing from the bottle if that's what you need. And that is going to help you very, very quickly.
Panic attacks is something that I think is important to talk about, because it definitely is something that we experience occasionally in our household. So you said put it on your skin. You could also just like grab the bottle and smell that, right?
Yeah. So, right, as I mentioned, just pick up the bottle, smell from the bottle. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. If you don't have a sniffy stick personal inhaler, I mean, if you have one, amazing, because then it's already maybe pre-done with some of your favorite blends or some of your favorite oils that you've blended together. But I mean, if you just have, a bottle of lavender in front of you and just start sniffing, then that'll be good.
Great.
Absolutely.
Is there a maximum amount of time you would use a blend? So let's say it's a acute sprained ankle. What would you suggest?
Yeah. So at that point, 3 to 5 days, right? Acute. Remember, we're going short term because we are going higher in the percent. We only want to use this high amount of a blend for 3, maximum 5 days. And I mean, obviously, if it's 1 or 2 days, that's also fine, but really no more than 5 days. After 5 days, you want to go down to chronic. And what we're going to look at in our next episode in part 2 of our series is chronic. But this is where, sometimes it doesn't end after 3 to 5 days, like a broken bone. Even I can think of when my son broke his collarbone. I mean, we used over-the-counter medicine for about 24 hours. And then after that, all we did was essential oils and homeopathic. And we kept asking him if he needed any over-the-counter pain meds. And he was like, no. And it was just very gently massaging over the area with analgesic and anti-inflammatory and calming oils to help him sleep also. And then his homeopathic. And within 10 days, he wasn't wearing his sling. We had to fight him to keep wearing his sling. And the doctor was like, no, if he doesn't want to wear it, he's fine. He's good.
Oh,
so, yeah. So short-term things can turn long-term, but we really want to keep that higher blend, stick it to the no more than 5 days.
Okay, so I'd mentioned like a sprained ankle. Another thing I'm thinking of is my husband spent too much time in the sun today, in these abnormally hot 30-degree Celsius weather here in April. I know this won't get listed until probably end of May, but it's very hot here today, and so I did a sun blend on him, like an after sun blend. And yes, in that particular case, I used like maybe a little bit more lavender than I would have if it had been something that I was putting on his skin every single day. So, and he might get it again tomorrow. Hopefully not. Usually it works pretty quickly. I find the after sun. What did I use? Lavender, tea tree, and spearmint, because I couldn't find my peppermint.
So. I find sometimes peppermint almost gets too cooling when I put it on afterwards. It depends how I put it. It depends what I mix it in with, I find. Because I've had it before where I accidentally added too much peppermint to an after sun blend for myself. And it was almost like the opposite effect where it went too cooling. And I was like, oh, I don't know which is worse.
Yeah. Is there anything else you can think of to keep in mind specifically for acute blending?
I think we pretty much covered everything. Just remembering that acute is short term, right? We are talking a very short term. Like I said, 3 to 5 days. Go a little bit higher than you typically would, still starting low and going slow. So yeah, and just have fun blending also though, right? I feel like people get stuck, like you were saying, in that pattern of what we're used to. And it's okay to come out of that pattern, play with it, play with your oils, see what's going to work. And if one thing doesn't work, switch the blends, switch oils. You always have options.
All right. Well, it was wonderful interviewing you for this episode, Nikki. We will be back with the 2, 3, and 4 parts of this series. And have a wonderful day. And we look forward to feedback from everybody as to what you're blending and how it's working. So feel free to reach out to us and let us know.
Awesome. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Vetiver Vibes. Bye. This episode was brought to you by Essentria, a leading online aromatherapy school. You can join the free introduction to essential oil course at www.schoolofessentria.com.
If you love this episode or you got a lot of value out of it, please make sure you share it with someone in your community who you think will enjoy it too. If you haven't already subscribed or reviewed the show yet, please go over to your preferred streaming platform and hit subscribe, then leave a review. This is the best way to help support us, and we appreciate it. Email us with a screenshot of your review, and you will be entered into our monthly draw for a free mini course.
This podcast is for information purposes only. We are certified clinical aromatherapists and holistic health professionals. If you have a medication concern, please refer to your health team. Everyone's health is unique to themselves, so the topics and suggestions stated may or may not apply to you directly.